Good afternoon. We'll bring the Community Development and Housing General Government Committee to meeting to order. Councilmember Montgomery is not here today, and I'm acting chair. I'm going to ask all of you, and I only asked this, I think, probably once, and today is it. Please bear with me. I just got news a couple of hours ago that my sister she's at Novant. She's got to have open heart in the morning. So I'm not feeling this right now. So I'm a little bit so just help me. I've asked my other fellow council members to also assist me today because I'm a little bit confused right now, okay? I'm emotional. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is, we take it in two parts. We have the consent agenda. Do we have any items that, first of all, that anyone wants to pull? Or do I go by the sheet that has been given to me to get this done?
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Councilmember Adams, yes, you can go by the sheet that you have.
Okay. Do we go through all of these?
There are 10 cases, and what we know as staff, there are 2 cases, those that are highlighted on the sheet in gray.
Okay.
We know as a staff that those 2 items are going to be removed, and there may be people in the audience that would like to remove any of the other items.
Okay, what we have here is to remove item C8 and item C14. Okay.
C8 and C14?
Correct.
Those are removed from
Okay, good enough. Thank you, Councilmember Bessie. He's helping me. This one is too. Councilmember Bessie suggested I just read through the addresses and ask if there anyone here who would have any claims or comments they want to make to the properties listed. The first one, C1, is 532 Arcadia Avenue, and it's in the South Ward. 532 Arcadia Avenue. Anyone here? Okay. Next one is C4, 1011 Brookline Street, located in the Southeast Ward. 1011 Brookline Street, okay, that's C4. Item C3, C5, am I reading that right?
Yeah,
C5, 1401 Pleasant Street, located in the Southeast Ward. Again, and I apologize, my contacts are messed up from crying. Would you please?
Next one is C6, which is at 2315 Booker Street. Anyone here for that one? Next one is 4101 Dalton Street. Anyone here for that? Next one is 2857 Reynolds Park Road.
And that one's being
That's
removed.
Pulled.
That was
Okay.
pulled.
Next one, C9, 1221 Hart Street. Anyone here for that? Next one is 2003 Thurman Street. Number 11 is 1617 North Cherry Street. Anyone here for that one?
We have a letter here from Mr. Perez. Is he here? Okay, so we have this letter. What do we do? He's asking for 6 months, 9 months extension to get his property up to compliance.
And that's the one on Cherry Street?
That's correct. Normally the time is after, if you all approve the demolition, normally the standard time is 3 months, and he's asking for extra time.
Anything from the committee? Councilman Best?
Let's pull that off and go through the rest and see how many we can do on one mission.
Okay.
So we're going to pull C11. Okay, next one. C12 is 1020 Nancy Lane. Anyone here for that one? Next one is 750 Devonshire Street. one. The next one is 4232 Yeaton Glen Circle.
And it's been
Y-E-A-T-O-N. That's the one that's being pulled,
Oh, yeah.
That's it.
and that's it. So
Yes.
we have three, Madam Chairman, that we're going to talk about individually, C8, 11, and 14.
Madam Chair, I'll move approval of the balance of the consent item.
I need a second.
I'll second. Dan, you push the button.
All those in favor, let it be known by voting yes. Thank you.
These sheets are very helpful.
Very, very. I helped him get this. Item C4, C11.
C8.
Wait a minute.
C8 's the first.
C8.
It's the first.
C11
Chair, was C8 pulled for discussion or removed?
Yeah, just for clarity, C8 is a request to have it removed from the agenda. That is a case that we have heard before and is currently in our rehab division. The customer is exploring options for one of our rehab lending programs. So the customer and staff is requesting that that item be completely removed for consideration.
So what action?
Vote to remove C8, C14 from the agenda?
In fact, is,
You don't really need a motion.
is C14 in the same posture?
Yes, sir. Actually, C14 is in a better posture because that house is currently under construction. They picked up a building permit from the permit office, from the inspections office, and that house is currently under construction.
All right, well, I'll move if this is in order that we simply remove C8 and C14 for further consideration today.
I'll second.
It's been moved and properly second.
Okay,
You need a motion for each? Okay.
all right, C8,
I withdraw my second.
C8.
Okay. All right, well, C8.
And I'll make the same motion for C12.
C11.
14.
C14, excuse me, C14.
C14.
Who's on
Sorry.
first?
C14.
C14.
If we can help you in any other way, please.
C8 has been moved and approved and voted on, and we're on C14 right now, waiting for it to come up, or do we need a?
Dan, do something.
Okay, second.
All righty then, technology at its best. It's been moved and properly seconded, and we'll all vote. And that has been approved on C14.
Now we go back to C11.
Now we go back to C11,
That's correct. That's correct.
and
Yeah.
he's requesting 9, but the policy right now is 6 months. What is the committee's pleasure on this?
This is in the North Cherry Historic.
Yeah, let's see the pictures again on this one. I looked at them, but
Looks like he had a fire in the back of it.
I can give you some of the due diligence we've done on this property. Originally, the case was done under another owner, and this customer purchased the property after the contacts from staff were with the previous owner. So this customer is a new owner, and that is part of the reason he is asking for more time. So the original violation, the notice of hearing, the repair and vacate order, all of our notices went to the previous owner, and this customer purchased the property after most of our due diligence
Had gone out.
was done.
okay.
So that is part of the reason he is asking for additional time outside of the typical 3 month period.
I'm okay with the 6 months. It's in the North Ward. I think this is in the Boston Thurman area. I think it is. It's
Yes.
Cherry, this is where I did those control restorations and had.
Boston Thurman, right there, Kimberly. So if somebody.
Yeah, I'll move that we give him, he wants 9 months?
6 months.
Six.
6
I'll
months.
give
I'll
him
move that
6.
we hold this in committee for 6 months,
Okay,
or whatever motion. Is that a good enough motion?
yes.
Second.
I haven't done
No, you did.
He
he was asking for 9 months. Wasn't he asking for 9?
Yeah, but we're giving him the 6. And once Dan seconds, you seconded, okay. Now they've seconded, I also would like to ask that we have an update. Let him know that we'd like to see an update in 6 months as to where he is, okay? 3 months, so that we'll see where he is and if he's going to need. This doesn't help him to understand. This isn't for him to not do anything.
Okay.
Okay? All right.
But it also doesn't mean he has to be done.
Right.
We just need
But
to see
some
progress.
progress.
Progress in 3 months?
Yes.
Okay.
All those in favor, please vote. It passes. Thank you. Now we will go back to the general agenda.
You don't have to worry.
No, I got
Any
one.
other?
What else
That's
have I
it.
got?
No, that's it.
General.
Wait a minute, is it,
Well, there are a couple other consent.
Okay.
sir, what, did you find out what one is he here for? Sir, can you come up to the microphone?
And,
Sir,
because we got the trans,
oh, can we have a translator
he's
here?
got one.
No problem. We have agreed to hold this in committee for 6 months,
Acabamos de decir que vamos a dar 6 meses.
and would like an update in a couple of months on kind of how's it going.
Y vamos a
Three months.
pedirle que nos dé un reporte de lo que ha hecho en 6 meses.
And we'll be happy to work with him to get this done.
Y vamos a trabajar con ustedes la cuestión de arreglo.
Okay?
Okay.
Thank you. Ask him if he's had anything he'd like to say.
Tiene usted algo que ver. Darle las gracias. Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Do we have anything else left on the consent?
No.
No, ma'am, that's it.
All right. Now we can move to the agenda.
Item G1 is a motion to excuse Councilmember Montgomery from voting on items G2, 3, and 4.
He's not here.
Easy one.
Keep going.
That's-
Yeah.
We'll do this Monday night.
Yeah, we'll do it Monday night.
G2.
Item G2, resolution approving the fiscal year 2019 Housing Community Development Program and authorizing submission of the 2019 through 2023 Consolidated Housing and Community Development Plan to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development.
And this was given yesterday to finance, but
Good evening, council members.
could be,
Good evening.
So we have before you today a request to approve our consolidated plan, our 5-year plan that will be going to HUD for approval. And you will notice that we have a slight increase in funding this year from the federal government. We have found an increase in our CDBG of 12.2%, which came to $240,436 over last year's allocation, annual allocation. With our home funds, we received a 47.6% increase in funding for $444,733. And while we did encounter a very slight decrease in funding with ESG of 1.1%, which equated to $2,055, generally we receive additional allocations of ESG from the state. So those are the amounts of dollars that we have to work with and have been programmed. Of course, you've heard previously about the community service grant activities that are also a part of this. And so we're before you today to seek approval for our next 5-year plan.
does anyone have any questions or comments? Councilman Lawson.
I have more of a technical question. Are the neighborhood revitalization strategic areas, strategy areas,
Yes, sir.
the defining of those boundaries, how often are they reviewed and how flexible are we in expanding them during this period?
Well, so usually when we do a new con plan, we're asked to provide new strategies and consistent with that, potentially new strategy areas. Our current plan, while it has new strategies, we have not adjusted the boundaries yet, and that is something that we would like to actually visit with each of you about One of the recommendations from HUD when we had our monitoring visit back in April was that we look at shifting our boundaries and making them smaller.
Yeah.
Those boundaries we've had in place for nearly 20 years, and the recommendation from HUD was that they were a bit too broad.
Yeah.
So we're doing some preliminary research on what might make sense in terms of shrinking the boundaries. Part of what we're looking at is making sure key neighborhoods would be included as those boundaries shrink. And so we're working with planning to put together some maps that can show the existing boundaries and the new proposed boundaries with your approval, and we would bring those to you hopefully in August when you return to get your feedback on that.
And so that includes both residential and commercial development areas?
That is correct.
Right. And do we differentiate the density of those problems within the area? I mean, seeing the map, it's a pretty big map. Yeah,
Yes, sir.
And we know that certain areas, like we've been working on really hard on Patterson Avenue, for example. You know, have we a way to differentiate the residential from the commercial components of this?
Not so much in terms of density. The primary driver for us is looking at the poverty levels.
Right.
And targeting that way. So that, and that was part of what HUD had said to us, was looking at how we might shrink areas to have more impact. So the primary driver for identifying those areas that we shrink is the level of poverty.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilmember McIntosh.
So Washington giveth and Washington taketh away. This is a one-year, pretty significant bump
Yes,
for
sir.
us. So we should not count on this being available to us next year.
No.
or the year
Absolutely not.
after. Okay, great, thank you.
Ms. Newman, one of the things I noticed in reading the report, that, again, they wanted to be the area more contiguous, more like you said, to be able to do an impact of whatever we do. And that will probably line up with some of us based on our mission and our strategies going forward, so far as, again, eradicating or decreasing the level of poverty in our city. And those neighborhoods generally, again, are the African American, Latino, Hispanic neighborhoods in the urban core. The map that you had in here, is that the original map, but I thought you had already shrunk it?
We're playing with those boundaries.
Right.
So we have a proposed idea,
Right.
but we haven't yet had the opportunity to visit with each of you to make sure that we're not missing any key neighborhoods or target areas that are important to you.
I thought that the map that you had in here was a good start. I looked at the neighborhoods. Again, I'm born and raised here, so I know where these areas are. And I thought you guys did a good job of already identifying the areas that we've already said we're going to concentrate on, such as the Cleveland Avenue area, that project, area plan, Southeast Ward, East Winston, Liberty Street, Martin Luther King area, Boston, Thurman, and those areas. So again, I think you've done a good job at doing that. So I'm looking forward to see the overlay of which ones you took out and looking at the demographics of what the census is telling us of the level of poverty in those neighborhoods. But I thought you did a good job.
Thank you, and we'll get that to you hopefully in the next couple of weeks.
One more question. The amount of money that we got from HUD, I read the area of the projects that we want to designate, but I also know, I'm asking you, what other areas could we do or projects besides the ones that you identified? Maybe what I'm looking at couldn't be a part of it, but the city manager, and you all remember my request to help Head Start with their issue. Is there any way we could have helped them with these funds, Community Development Block Grant?
Potentially, but what has happened, at least for this current plan, is we did a series of public meetings and focus groups and the like to get the input from the citizens about what they were seeing as priorities. And so we generally tried to take that feedback when we did those public participation sessions to help kind of shape what this plan was like. So that may not have been an area that kind of bubbled up in terms of us doing any kind of direct investment at this point.
But the money, was it all taken to do to these designated projects, or do we have some left?
No, ma'am. We programmed all of the dollars that we were allocated. And that's one reason why we were waiting to bring the plan to you because we were waiting to hear from HUD what our actual allocations would be, so that then we could make whatever adjustments were necessary to make sure that the request for funding lined up with the funding that we were going to receive.
Chairman Adams, or Vice Chair Adams, the Family Services was kind of late to the game. They brought in their request, well after the allocation committee and staff had finished it. In fact, they brought the request in about 6 weeks ago. However, what we've been working with them on is a multi-year approach. So this first appropriation that's in there out of Housing Finance Assistance Funds, we'll look at next year. Hopefully, we can dial some of this community development block grant in, because they need. I understand that their cost is almost 7 figures to fix the building. So.
Okay. Thank you. But is there any way, again, that we can work with the county or any other agencies, innovative financing, help, assistance? Again, I'm just saying, we talk about we want things to get better, and if we're not willing to help the people that are teaching our children, especially the children who would not get these opportunities to have a successful life in school, then we're just talking.
They are meeting with the county. I don't know how they had the same issue coming late to the game with the county, but I know they put in a similar request with the county.
Okay. I'd be looking for, Mr. Garrity, some kind of update on this, because I believe in council members, this is all hands on deck. Even if they're late to the game, the problem is real. These children need that center to be open, and that's a fact. So if you'll just keep us updated on that. Any other comments on G2? Can I get a motion, please?
I'll move approval.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded. All of you can vote when the screen comes up. And it has been approved. Next item, please.
Item G3, resolution authorizing submission of emergency solutions grant application, acceptance of grant funds, and execution of subgrantee agreements.
Ms. Newman.
Okay, so it is time for us to look at our annual grant allocation for ESG. And I mentioned in my previous remarks that we did have a 1.1% reduction in funding from the federal government, which equated to $2,055. However, over the years, we receive additional funding from the state that tends to enable us to have a fairly robust pot of funds to program around emergency shelters. So we're coming before you today to ask that you approve our programming of the allocation that we have received from the federal government.
I need any comments? I need a motion.
Move. Approve.
I'll second.
It's been moved and properly seconded. All those in favor, please vote.
These were the same ones we were given in finance yesterday. They were more in a chart format.
Yes, sir.
It's been approved. Next item, please.
Item G4, resolution authorizing submission of continuum of care homeless grant application, acceptance of grant funds, and execution of agreements.
And basically, I'm going to say the same thing with our continuum of care for our homeless services. And we're seeking your support to move forward with submitting the application and programming the dollars.
Any comments? May I have a motion, please?
Approval.
It's been moved and properly seconded. All those please vote. And it passes. Next item.
Item G5, resolution implementing the federal uniform guidance procurement requirements and the required conflicts of interest and gifts policy.
From our short-timer attorney.
Good afternoon. Basically, what you have before you is a policy that puts in place the Uniform Federal Procurement Guidelines that was enacted by the federal government, and they become effective July 1st, 2018. And it applies to any federal funds that we receive in the form of a grant or a loan. And essentially, it uses the lowest responsive bidder process. There are procedures for making sure you try to take affirmative steps to get MWBEs. And when possible, the city will layer on top of these requirements its local policy regarding MWBEs, but we have to check with each federal agency to make sure that that's okay. But these are the guidelines that were enacted and each government has to put in place.
Okay.
We've had some questions pop up, and we've spoken to each individual federal agency. And I'm sure as we become more familiar with the guidelines and try to implement them, we will have more questions, and when the questions have been resolved and when tweaks are necessary, we'll come back with you.
Okay.
So they require not only the policy, but a gifts and favor policy as well, which is not unlike what we already have. Just a few more provisions.
All right.
Both are recommended for your approval.
Any comments?
On the whole, our standards meet or are higher than these as a whole.
As a whole, they are higher. We do have a geographical preference policy, so to speak, which we have clear indications that they're not going to allow us to apply. But for the MWBEs, for the most part, I think ours are higher. So.
Councilmember Larson, McIntosh.
Does that mean when we're doing our matrix of on bids, we cannot weight location? So
We're going to take those points and redistribute them to the other categories when federal projects and federal funds are.
that's a bummer.
Yeah.
We just had to do that on the emergency management grant the other day.
Okay. But we all knew that was coming because we weren't the only jurisdiction from my meeting with other council members across the state and across the country that were considering doing things similar to that, that people that live in our area get more points if they qualify than businesses that were outside. So it is what it is.
You have to follow her guidelines.
You have to follow the guidelines. Any other questions or comments? Can I have a motion, please? It's been, here you go, I should second it. All those in favor, let it be known by voting yes. And it's passed. Next item.
Item G6, ordinance amending chapters 2, 10, 18, 26, 38, 42, and 74 of the City Code related to various technical corrections.
And these were also in the Finance Committee. Most of this agenda is, and it's quite unusual that we have almost the same agenda in these two committees, but this week we do. Any comments or questions?
I'll just make a few comments. Most of the changes are due to either changes in the state law or federal law. You'll note the revisions under Chapter 2 relate to the procurement procedures that I just went over, so that's an indication, of course, we'll comply with those. The changes, I guess, above relate to changes in department names and changes in department titles. Just updated the disqualification for contractors provision to include a violation of city policy regarding ethics or city ethics policy, a violation of local, state, or federal law. Briefly, in the residency policy, I just updated the titles. The titles, again, have changed over the years. Included a statement regarding the desire of council to refrain from using the voluntary annexation procedures to allow an employee to effectuate compliance with the policy. The other changes are state law changes. Did make a change regarding the bulk container program, which I understand will be discontinuing shortly, so there's a statement regarding that. And the rest are just technical changes, but I'll be happy to answer questions.
Any comments, questions? May I have, do we need a motion?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. It's been moved and seconded. Yeah. All those in favor, please vote yes. Thank you. It passes. G7, next item.
Item G7, update on revisions to the draft fence ordinance.
Mr. Contos.
Thank you, Mr. Attorney Contos. Thank you. Go ahead.
Good afternoon. For your further consideration today is an updated ordinance amendment that would address fences. I'll briefly highlight what those revisions are. The first is the ordinance specified that the fences that are to be regulated are only applicable in residential districts, and specifically residential properties containing single-family homes, duplexes, twin homes, triplexes, quadruplexes, and townhouses. Provision was also added prohibiting the blocking of alleys in violation of Section 7492 and 7499 of the city's code. The more important revision deals with a revised height standard, and the height standard in this proposal would only apply to fences in front yards, so that there would be a height limit of 4 feet, and that 4 feet limitation would only apply to fences that had an opacity of greater than 50%. In other words, in layman's terms, if you can't see through, if more than 50% of the area of that fence cannot be seen through, then your limit is 4 feet. Now, there is an exemption that was added for boundary fences and walls that are made out of masonry. And the final revision was to eliminate, there were some exemptions in the prior iteration that dealt with commercial land uses and facilities, and given that the fence ordinance as it stands today only applies to certain residential properties, those exemptions are no longer applicable. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Councilmember Clark.
2 questions. I have been driving around looking at fences lately, and I see a lot of them, and I see some that are 5, 6 feet tall, and they're kind of wrought iron, kind of decorative. You can certainly see through them, but a lot of them have bushes planted on them. Do the bushes count towards the opacity? Yeah.
No, not as it's contemplated herein. I mean, the bushes could be pulled up at any time. It's strictly the structure itself,
Okay.
whether the fence itself can be seen through.
And the last one, and I'm not a lawyer, but I know there's a number of them in the room. When I'm reading what this applies to, I do have some neighborhoods that are single-family homes or duplexes or triplexes, and there's a wall around the whole neighborhood, so to speak.
Correct, and don't know if the attachment is
The one with
before
the
you.
pictures?
There are, and we included this because it's often easier to picture things.
And could you go ahead and speak to that while we're looking at?
Absolutely.
Everyone got your pictures up?
If you look at the 5th page of.
But the one I'm looking here, it's a masonry wall, but it's also got wood with it, combination.
Correct. So
Yeah, the next one after.
a masonry, both of these would be compliant under the proposed ordinance because the top one is a masonry wall, i.e. constructed entirely out of masonry. The bottom one is a masonry boundary fence, meaning that its supports are made out of brick, out of masonry. You'll see on the prior page also a masonry boundary fence there, a more wrought iron look rather than wood, but because of the element of the masonry under this revision, it would be compliant.
And it obviously doesn't apply to side yards or backyards.
Correct.
Okay, thank you, that's all.
The one, you got a question, Councilmember?
Yeah, just a question about the procedural status. Has this gone through the planning process?
No.
So this would be going to the planning.
Well, it would be planning. I was just getting ready to say, when I was asked to draft the ordinance, I wanted to make sure I got input from all the council members before taking it through that process, because I wanted to make sure we were focusing on the actual issue at hand. So we tweaked the ordinance to try to narrow it on front yard fences, which is apparently where the problem exists.
Councilmember McAdoo.
Excuse me. And I seem to remember from previous discussion about this that masonry does not equal cinder block. Are we talking about only certain types of masonry, or could you do a cinder block wall?
I quite frankly,
Because I know we had exclusions
not-
for metal, but then we had sort of an override mechanism where if it was artistic, you could appeal it.
I will need to check with
masonry
building
is a
inspection
pretty
staff to see how the building code addresses it and whether or not cinder block would indeed qualify. As is, I don't think so, but if there were a stucco effect to that cinder block, I need to check on that.
Yeah, I think that's something that we could miss and not be happy about later.
Councilmember Larson.
Yeah, I have 2 points to make. I guess one is under item, get my eyes off, E, we talk about historic districts and historic overlays. We should probably include designated historic properties. They have their own guidelines and fall under a Historic Resources Commission as well for their aesthetics. And then the second point, which I made before, and I'm not sure I've sort of covered here, is my suggestion that the decorative side or the clean side of the fence be placed on the out-facing side of the fence, so that any structural elements or the less decorative side be retained on the owner's side. That is, if on the street side or the neighbor's side, that they would have the best-looking side of the fence.
I know you and I had a conversation about
Yeah.
that. I haven't forgotten about it.
Yeah.
It's addressed in terms of the front fence, but not in terms of the
Right.
sides. But we'll
Well, if
continue
looking at
to-
any fence, I mean, historically, that's what happened. I mean, that's, if you go back to the Raven records, that's, I mean, it's very clear about, that keeps neighbors from complaining that they're looking at an ugly side of the
Good
fence.
neighbors do that.
Good neighbors do that.
Councilmember
I've
Clark.
seen some fences, quite honestly, that look really good.
Well, the one you show is an example of sort of that variant, but I think there's a lot of room for problems in that area, and I'd like to go ahead and define it.
We'll look at it some more.
Councilmember Clark.
Are we allowing any grandfathering? And,
what I was
or
wondering.
secondly, is there any type of grace period? Because I do have one or two that are wooden fences, completely wooden, and they'll either have to take out some of the slats or do something different.
We left it at 2 years, but you all can decide whether or not they need much longer to come into compliance, which means changing the fences or taking them down, the ones that are in violation.
Also, I did want to point out, it'll be on the second page of the ordinance, second full paragraph. There is a provision in there that when the zoning officer finds that there exists an unusual or extraordinary circumstance where an overwhelming public interest is served by allowing the additional height to protect a residential use from potential negative impacts surrounding the property, the zoning officer at that point may allow either a new fence or, in your instance, a non-conforming fence to remain.
But if you think 2 years is not enough, let us know.
I'm just, don't get me wrong, I'm here thinking, can we do this to people? I mean, I've saw what other cities have been doing it, but, you know, to tell a person you can't have a fence around the front part of your house, maybe you have a lot of family gatherings, are we doing this for safety reasons, public safety, or what? I'm just asking.
You can have the fences, again, it's just
You can have the fence,
height limitations.
but you're saying the height, and then you're saying being able to see through it. On the front, still. Most people, a lot of people now don't congregate in their backyards anymore, or their side yards. A lot of people now congregate in the front yard. And that's why we've seen these different variations of fences, because their neighbors and the neighborhoods didn't like it. They didn't like looking at them doing their barbecues or whatever they do in the front yard. You're the attorney on the legal side. Can we do this?
Yes, but now the question is whether or not this is what council wants to do, but legally, yes.
Again, there's culture diversity, the way we congregate, the way our communities are. I'm just gonna, like you said, I'm gonna have to do some talking to my people in the community, because there are a lot of fences, different types in the urban core that people have put up because that's what they wanted to do. So I just need to find out.
I would encourage each of you to drive through your wards. I've actually driven through several, just looking at fences. Took a couple of pictures just to try to make sure we were addressing the problem that was mentioned to me, but I would encourage each of you to do that.
Because this is what's going on in Raleigh. What may be going on in other communities might not be an issue in some of our communities because it's part of who we are and how we live. So, yeah, I think this may end up being one of those cars on the lawn type deals, whereas it might not be good for all of us. So, thank you for letting us have the opportunity to go back and get feedback from our communities. Any other questions or comments? This is just for information.
I've only found one in the West Ward that, because if it's below 4 feet, you don't have to worry about it. And chain link fences or decorative iron fences are see-through. So it's really just solid wood fences, the only ones that really qualify. And I've only seen one that's on the front yard.
Okay. Thank you.
Robin Hood.
GA?
Item G8, Building Integrated Communities Report.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Everyone who's on the community.
I will go ahead and introduce these lovely ladies standing behind me. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
We are here to present an update on the Building Integrated Communities program. We have some great community stakeholders here who would like to deliver those updates to you today. And so to my left, I have Ms. Pauline Morris. Directly behind, now she's directly behind me is Ms. Perla Hilton, and then also we have Mary Jo Turner. And so we have other big community stakeholders in the audience as well, but I think they're going to be recognized a little bit later by the ladies speaking to you today with the updates. Thank you.
Thank you.
So first up is Pauline Morris.
Okay. Everyone who is part of the BIC community, stakeholders, I do believe that includes Adolfo. Quick. Yes? Okay. Winston-Salem Building Integrated Communities. The Stakeholder Committee has had a very successful inaugural year of 2017-2018. Now, this is our first year that the BIC initiative has worked independently of the University of North Carolina in Chapel Hill. Now, the purpose of Building Integrated Communities has been to provide a one-stop shop, there we go, for newcomers to our community. Now, some of the newcomers have come from other parts of North Carolina, some have come from other states. They also include refugees, immigrants, asylees, all newcomers to our area. We have tried to provide resources to them, and they are in the sustainable living areas of housing, education, health, legal assistance, public safety, transportation, information on worship possibilities in our area. And we have been made up of community stakeholders. Now, these stakeholders include many different agencies in our community, such as Wake Forest University School of Medicine, Novant Health, Winston-Salem Forsyth County Schools, Legal Aid, the Hispanic League, Winston-Salem Police Department, Winston-Salem Department of Transportation, Winston-Salem Office of Business Diversity and Inclusion. That's not everyone. We even have more as a part of this community who are working together to engage the newcomers, to collaborate on providing resources to these newcomers. Our focus of attention has been on specific action items this year, such as the quarterly BIC pipeline information sessions, and the BIC website, which is a new area for us, which is excellent. The city has worked very hard on that, and we're very thankful for that, and the BIC outreach efforts that we have had.
About a quarterly BIC pipeline information sessions. These information sessions have been primarily held at the West Campus at Forsyth Tech. Forsyth Tech was an ideal location based on its accessibility, that's correct, for the physically challenged and its location along a bus route. Newcomers who attended this year's pipeline information sessions spoke a total of 8 different languages, and all of them were provided with language services such as interpreters. We have our next one on July 18th. We would love to see most of you all there to see how it comes along and how amazing it is to gather all these resources in one place.
Thank you. And the BIC website, hopefully you've all visited that. The BIC stakeholders continue to work closely with Hyde Brown, and that's from the City of IS department. And then they provide input and suggestions for the integration of the BIC's online resource guide to the city. They've been continuing to do different upgrades throughout the year, including having like a faith group area, so you could find, if you're new to the community and wanted to find a spiritual home, you can find that there. I also wanted to tell you about our BIC outreach efforts, and I'm not sure if you've all received this, but let me. This is our new report. It's a Winston-Salem BIC booklet that was developed to share with service providers. The stakeholders also presented at the Wake Forest University School of Medicine Community Engagement Workshop. Other opportunities for partnership are to raise awareness of our BIC, and will continue in, of course, 2018-2019. And we're happy to address any questions you may have, and of course we appreciate the continued support of each of you, of Mayor Joines, and of course City Council.
Thank you. Any comments?
A question.
Yes, Councilman Clark.
Ms. Turner, do y'all have any idea how many new folks move to town each year? Do you have a number, approximation or whatever? Just curious.
You're asking about the number of those who speak various languages?
Or just in general, how many
people
come to town that we need to be in contact with?
I do not have a hard number. Mary Jo, do you? I don't have a hard number. We basically use the census data, Councilmember Clark, from the last census to gauge the work that we needed to do in terms of surveying the community about what they needed. But we don't have hard numbers since the census.
That's fine.
So you know those are definitely outdated by now.
And I will say there's 7 other elected officials that can have their picture taken over.
You just got to show up to the meeting.
Yeah, I had mine
Mr.
year before
McIntosh
last.
is on every page, I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Yes, Councilman McIntosh.
Councilmember Larson and I were fortunate enough to accept this on behalf of Councilmember Adams. She got snowed out. John and I braved the snowstorm, went up to D.C. and picked up the award very early in the morning, I might add.
Yeah.
In the weather.
I think you have lots of enthusiastic support from council. The picture on the front, I think, was from the first pipeline meeting, and it was a bit chaotic, but it was really pretty exciting. I mean, I was amazed at how many different languages were being spoken and how people were being accommodated for it. I thought it was really cool. Thank you for what you do.
We did. We had various languages spoken at the very first one. It's been like that ever since.
Yeah.
But now the headsets have been a huge help for the interpreters that we have, and the Winston-Salem Forsyth County schools have been wonderful about loaning us the headsets, as well as Neighbors for Better Neighborhoods.
Great.
Any other comments? Councilmember Larson. Excuse me. Go ahead.
I was going to say there are 92 languages now spoken in the Forsyth County schools, so we are a very, very diverse community. And we do have these posters also. We went ahead and scheduled out for the whole year quarterly for the pipeline, so I'm going to leave those up there for you also so you're aware of those dates. Again, hopefully you'll join us for those.
Thank you very much.
Councilman Larson.
You say you work as sort of a one-stop shopping center for these services. Are you able then to monitor and stay in touch with your clients as they sort of engage in Winston-Salem over a lengthy period of time? I mean, what is your lingering relationship that you experience? I assume you have records on these people of some sort, and you continually engage them in some way? Is that,
yes, that is true. That is true. We actually award, well, I shouldn't say award, we issue certificates of completion to those who go through the BIC pipeline information sessions. And we also actually have a lot of the participants by way of Forsyth Tech and by way of World Relief. And they have, I guess you could say a closer relationship with them, in that they are providing very, very specific services to them. For instance, with Forsyth Tech's ESL program. And with World Relief, of course, they're providing employment support and things of that nature. So we really rely heavily on our community partners, our stakeholders, to help us to stay in touch with a lot of the immigrants and refugees who go through the pipeline. Also, we engage them with our with trust talks. We have an immigrants trust talks, or a newcomers trust talks, as we like to say. We've been doing that annually, and so that's another way just to make sure that we're keeping in touch. They can give us feedback and information about how they are adjusting, particularly under the umbrella of public safety. Yes.
Again, we want to thank you for what you do. You are invaluable to the community. It shows that all of us have something at the table that we all need to do or can do that all the rest of us can't do. So we thank you for that. Thank you also for being a part of getting the award at the National League of Cities. You know me. I'm always looking, when I'm reading all these emails and things that they send us, I'm always looking for an opportunity to get Winston-Salem out there in the public, to let them know we're a great city. We are a welcoming city. And when people come here from different cultures to America or to our community, we want them to be able to access any of the services and quality of life resources that we have. You do a great job, and I enjoyed talking to the guy, whoever it was they sent to interview us, and basically I told him, I was like, we got everything. You need to give us this award. He looked at me like, council member, I have to interview. I was like, do your job, but I'm just telling you, our department, the city of Winston-Salem and its citizens, we do everything we can to be a hospitable city because of who we are. But again, thank you to each and every one of you, and please continue to keep up the good work.
Thank you for sending us that email about applying, by the way. And this is a great tie-in with our limited English proficiency program with the city, and so it's just an offshoot from that. So thank you for your support.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have any other comments? Go to the order. All right. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you all for being so patient.